Welcome to the Bigwater Podcast. I am Ross Robertson. As always, we're going to talk about fishing, craziness, who knows where it's going to go, but I've got my longtime friend, Tyson Keller, who's kind of an outdoors guru. We're going to talk about all the things that he's done starting at age 16. So Tyson, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Ross. Man, I'm happy to be here. It's a pleasure to be here. And like Ross said, we've got some funny, crazy stories to share with you guys today. And starting at 16, it started way before that. We all know that. But anyway, happy to be here, Ross. Really looking forward to the show. And I'm sure I'm going to be in tears laughing here by the end of it because I know what's ahead of us. These guys aren't yet, but...
Yeah, I mean, you're a very intense guy like me, but you're also funny as hell, and you're not afraid to just crack it up, and a lot of guys get too serious about themselves, and that's definitely not us. And we've definitely had some things go through, because you've been guiding, you guided for, God, how long? I mean...
Well, it's this going back to what you said about being able to get wild and crack up and whatnot. I mean, we got to be professionals. Don't get me wrong there, but Ross and I, we've got a similar sense of humor that's kind of connected us along the way. We've heard people say, "How do you know this guy?" Well, we can relate by the way we relate, I guess. I don't know.
I remember when our buddy Fred introduced us, and he was like, "I'm really going to regret this, but you guys will have a lot of fun." And that was definitely the case. I remember we jumped in the boat like a day after I met you, and it's been on like Donkey Kong since. And believe it or not, that's been like over a decade ago, I think now.
It's funny, yeah. Fred Zink, in my previous career, Fred and I got to be pretty good friends. We worked together, but I always wanted to go out to Lake Erie walleye fishing. And, I grew up walleye fishing on the Missouri River in South Dakota, Lake Oahe, the one of the largest holding reservoirs on the Missouri River. Used to fish out here. I'm like, man, I keep hearing about Lake Erie. Fred was like, man, I live right in Port Clinton. I got this guy. He's kind of this wiry dude, you got to be careful, but I think I can hook you up and, introduce you guys. I don't know if he'll take you fishing, but anyway, that happened, yeah, like you said, over 10 years ago, and it's funny how, there's those little stepping stones along the way, the good people that you meet along the way that you just keep in touch with. Life.
Birds of a feather flock together, right?
Like that.
So take me back. I mean, you live, I guess, for letting everybody know that doesn't know you like I do, you live out near Pierre, South Dakota.
Yeah, right? That's correct. I live right north of town and just out in the country in Pierre, South Dakota. And for those of you that don't know the area, it's God's country out here. There's a lot of unique places that have great resources and awesome fishing and hunting across the nation. But this is home to me. I grew up here. I cut my teeth here, learning how to hunt and fish, and it's home. It's been home, and fortunately, I've been able to travel and witness a lot of really neat places, just like with you out at Lake Erie. It's a cool place to be up here.
So, like I said, me and you are very similar, except for I'm taller, but you're an intense dude who comes close to mastering a lot of different things, which I don't think very many people do. I mean, I know a little bit about it. I didn't know your whole story, so I'll get to learn the whole thing too. But I know shooting, with sporting clays and students. Tell me about some of that stuff because you've had really big success with that.
Well, it's funny that what Ross says that you get to know a lot of people that like to fish or they like to shoot or they like to hunt. But there's a very, very small margin of people I'll use Ross as an example, very, very talented guy. He's got the instinct, he's got the know-how, he's got the decision-making skills. I think those that are really good in the game, I've been fortunate enough to surround myself with mentors and people like you, and they've been really good in the game and they help shape you as a person. But my desire to just be the best damn person I could be at whatever it is started at a very young age. The competitiveness, the wanting to be outdoors. I hate talking about myself, but anyway, I'll share with you what I can. Since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, I wanted to be outside. I wanted to fish. I wanted to hunt. I wanted to shoot. Started shooting and fishing at 4, 5, 6 years old. I remember I had a bait casting reel. I went down to a local bait shop when I was 5 years old. My mom took me down there, and they had all these quantum bait casters, on the shelf, and the guy at the bait shop says, "Oh, you're too young. You don't know how to run one of those. You'll get a backlash." And here I am out there flipping into a bucket, at age 5, pitching a bait caster. And I mean, mastering those skills started at a very young age. But I've just been kind of washed in the blood when it comes to being outdoors. And I know you mentioned shooting. Started at a very young age, started shooting a lot with my dad competitively, sporting clays, at about the age of 10 or 11. By 14, we were down shooting at the Nationals in San Antonio, Texas, and did that all the way up through my college career. And in the meantime, I was trying to piece together fishing and guiding and everything in between. And it's just a very unique learning experience. If you really get your head in the game, no matter what it is, there's commonalities between shooting, between fishing, between business. I know you can relate to that, Ross, but connecting those common threads of the decision-making, the instinct, everything like that shapes you as a person and it makes you better. I mean, it's cool how, you don't think about it when you're younger, but now you look back on it and it's, what's the word? I think they call it wisdom. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I don't have much of that, but I hear you knocking.
But anyway, no, shot a lot. I know you brought up shooting, but shot competitively in the sporting clays all across the nation for well over a decade. Traveled with my dad and did that, and learned a lot of great people doing that. And that was just kind of a stepping stone in the Rolodex of different things, hunting, fishing related, that I was able to do at a young age.
Right. I mean, guys that are really good at stuff, they generally start it earlier. I know there's exceptions to that, but like you said, it's a foundation, it's a building block off this or off that. I mean, and then you started guiding at 16, which legally we can't even do out here. But so give me a little bit about the guiding. I mean, at 16 you started guiding, am I right? Or
now here's what's funny is so at when I was 12 or 13, we're doing a lot of shooting, and I fished all the time. I had some really good mentors, and I always wanted my own boat. And back at the time, it was like I wanted a skeeter boat. First off, I don't know why I wanted a skeeter boat, and then I wanted a Ranger boat, and then it progressed for nothing but Ranger since then. But we'll get into that later. But at the age of 12, actually, went down to the Nationals, and at the time I was shooting as what's called a junior division. That was 17 and less, and ended up shooting in the men's bracket as well. It was you could shoot both in your age division and then against men in your class. Well, I ended up getting third place in the men's division. The second year I was at Nationals, I had to shoot off in a stadium at the National Complex. I tied a guy from Vermont that was 47 years old, and I'm 12, and we had a shoot off, and I was getting the shoot off against this guy, and I remember we flipped a coin, and they said, okay, whoever shot the best at this station on this day, you get to choose the coin flip. Well, anyway, they flipped it. I said heads. I got to shoot first, and I stood up there and I smoked every clay that came on the trap. And this guy got up there. I'll never forget. He was loading his over and under, and he was putting the shells in there and trying to shut the gun. He was up next, and he missed the first bird out, and it was over with. Well, I ended up winning a decent little amount of money for that. It didn't cover expenses at all, but I think it was a couple $1,000. And
welcome to the outdoor industry.
more than my dad, it didn't even cover my dad's expenses for shotgun shells for the practice the 2 weeks before. But I brought that money back, and I bought myself a 16-foot Lund Mr. Pipe with a 25 Lorse on it at the age of 12. And I started fishing then. My mom put a bumper hitch on her Buick Park Avenue. And
that's pimping.
Water, I'd be like, well, I'll come back and meet you at 4 o'clock, and we'll load it up. And started fishing at 12 or 13 out of my own boat, a little junker, and really learned how to be on the water and instinct at a young age, and started guiding at 16. And then from then on out, is just on the water full force every day. When did you start guiding, Ross? I've never asked you that question.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're playing tennis or fishing, you got to go do it. That's, I think, the thing that's lost on today's. Everybody just wants to be a superstar right out of the gate, but you got to put a lot of time in. I started guiding technically, when I was 18, because that's when you legally can do it. But then I worked as a boat bitch, as a first mate / boat bitch for, probably I was about 14, maybe, something like that. Because of the Coast Guard stuff on the Great Lakes, our regulations and things are a little bit different. But yeah, a lot of days, thousands of days.
Yeah. So, I going back, the number of days at the age of 16, so I did that from 16 until I graduated high school. I did it from like May until August, and it was every day. Some months I didn't even have a day off. And the amount of things that you learn about the habits of fish, migrations, weather patterns, boat control, people pleasing, it's being able to deal with clients and personalities at a very, very young age. It was very, very interesting for someone at my age to do that. I was fortunate enough to do it, and then did that all the way through probably a junior in college. And then I had to start summer school for my master's program. And so that was the last year that I was able to guide. It's right before I started my MBA in my college career. But hundreds and hundreds of, actually thousands of days on the water. If you added it up over that time, and then, the time in between of fun fishing and out there trying to find fish for the clients coming and, just being involved. There's nothing that can replace time on the water and developing instinct, and I know you can relate to that as well.
Right. So what is your balance of hunting and fishing? Like, if you could only do one, or is it 50-50? Because I know you love both.
Oh man, it's waterfowl and walleyes. It's I don't know how else to say it. Geese and ducks and walleyes, and it's an equal addiction. I've got 3 really bad addictions. One's walleyes, one's waterfowl, and I'm not going to name the other one. but anyway, no, you asked me that, Ross. It's the time of year. I tell you what, it's like a light switch. Anybody that's really, really, really passionate about it's got it in the blood. It's like, some guys know what you mean when you say this, but it's just like, you can't stand yourself. You have to be outside. You got to be going. And some about walleyes that flips that trigger, and some about geese and ducks that do it. And that's a tough choice, man. It's tough.
They're both so challenging. You know what I mean? And there's so many things that are out of your control that even if you do everything you need to do, you can still just end up with egg on your face.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you say. It's being able to make those, those instinct adjustments to be successful, and it's those things that you learn over the years. And like you say, walleyes, there's so many factors and uncontrollable variables that you have, but you got to be able to adapt. And same with waterfowl. I think that's why it's been such a passion of mine, is because it's a challenge. Every single day is opening a new book. And it's not like you can go out and say, hey, I caught them at 40 feet back here last June on this lure and at 1.1 mile an hour, and tomorrow I can go do it again. That's not the case.
And do you think that's what makes guiding so difficult? Because if it's me and you in the boat, it's one thing. But when you've got a husband and wife and they're not dressed properly, like they've got shorts on, and you got a front coming in, and the fishing's gonna get good, but they're getting cold, or you can't turn the boat into the waves, you're taking water over the bow, or me and you would be like, don't care, we're dressed for it, or don't care. And you know what I mean? And it's hard for you to start, you're focusing more, at least this was a conversation I had the other day, is why I think of it. You're focused more on Betty Sue and Tommy over here than you are about, okay, what do I need to change up, or seeing what happened, or missing that bite, or watching that guy that just netted him on some shallow water, to make a slide up or down. You know what I mean? Because that's, to me, I think, the longer I go, it gets to be harder, because you're trying to do all these other things that really aren't fishing, and people nowadays seem to be needing to be accommodated more.
All distractions. Yeah, I don't like distractions. I like the tunnel vision to stay in focus. But like you say, there's just so much that goes into that makes you. But let's look at it this way. It makes you better all around that way, though. I mean, if you can, you know, if say in your daily career, Ross, you know, if you go out there and you can balance having everything set right, catching fish and entertaining people and running the boat and doing it all, you're a jack of all trades. And it's, you know, I think that's a true test. And if you can go out there and accomplish all of that, you get you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I got to get it done every day, and that's, you know, with you. I mean, you've done both elements of that, the guiding and the tournaments, like I have, and it's the same thing. People don't want excuses, you know, and tournament stuff. It's your one-man show essentially, and you got to produce, plain and simple. But I think probably one of the best things. I know me and you have talked about these 3 years, and I don't remember all of them, but I was trying to jot down some notes to remember, because when me and you are together in the boat, which doesn't happen enough. But when it does, I just think about some of the stories, and we've created our own stories, most of which we'll probably have to have that in round 2 so that we can make sure we're not fired. But give me some of your just guiding stories of just like, I mean, some of them are funny, some of them are, you know, they're different, right? But
well, I hope this week getting into this, any listeners that are out there, I apologize in advance if I offend you by anything. I mean, no, there's some really, really funny stories. And I actually, some of the funniest stories I've got were fishing with Ross and
which is impressive for a guy that's done what you've done in your hot personality.
Some of the experiences, I mean, I share these. I've got guys that come hunting and with me in the spring every year when we're hunting, and they're like, man, tell me that story again. And we'll waste an hour talking about these stories. It's unbelievable. But, you know, when you're on the water that much and with so many different personalities and expectations, I think expectations are really the biggest variable among clients. You know, they all have high hopes, but the expectations vary so much from person to person. But
you need, like, when I put one in the net and it's like 8 pounds, and the guys from, like, you know, wherever, Iowa, and the biggest fish they ever caught's 3 pounds, and we put a 7 or 8 pounder in the net, and he's like, are we going to catch big ones today or just little ones like that? I'm like, because I've had that. And you're like, you live in Iowa. There's probably not a fish that big in your system, right?
Yeah. Well, don't pigeonhole it to Iowa, because I mean that's a big fish wherever you're at. But
yeah.
But you just get different things. But no, as far as stories go, we've got.
I remember one about a hyperactive kid that you had.
Oh my God! Okay, so here we go. Bear with me, folks. I'm going to try to keep my professionalism, but yet be a comedian at the same time. So this is going back. I'll never forget. It was probably my second year of guiding. I was probably 17 years old. We went out. We had severe thunderstorm watch that, and I had a father and a son, and we were going out. And I said, "You got your rain gear? You got everything you need? If it gets nasty, we're going to be coming back in. If there's lightning, our lodge policy was if there's electricity in the air, we put the boats on the trailer." Just for safety standpoint. So we went out, this big cloud started rolling across the bluffs to the west coming in, and wind starts blowing. I was like, yeah, there's some lightning crashing. Everybody gets on the radio, and they're like, yeah, the storm's 20 miles out. We should probably come in. We'll go back out in a couple hours. Well, we come in, we put the boat on the trailer, and when we went out in the morning, the dad told me that his son had a severe case of ADHD and hyperactivity. Well, I mean,
me and you do too.
I can relate to that a little bit, you know. I mean, but anyway, we come in and we put the boat on the trailer. It starts raining. I said, let's just hang out here at the ramp for a little bit. Well, the kid's like, I got to go to the bathroom, Daddy. Can I go to that outhouse over there? Well, there's like a state park outhouse, and he's like, yeah, go ahead. Well, it starts pouring rain. This kid that was probably 12 years old at the time runs down to the bank, and where we're at, it's all shale mud. I mean, it's gumbo. And I'm sitting there looking in my rear view mirror, you know, looking back, and I see this yellow poncho running around. The kid's down, stomping around in the mud and rolling around. He falls down. The kid comes back and is like, Dad, I'm cold, I'm wet, I'm muddy. So he tries to get into the truck.
Sounds like a Tyson maneuver.
Okay, we're going to go up to the lodge. The lodge is like a half a mile up the hill. I said, I'm just going to let him just this ride in the back of the truck, and the dad said, no, I want to make sure he's in a seat. So I ended up, instead of putting him in my truck, I put him in the Ranger boat. At this time, I had like a 2-year-old Ranger boat. The kid's behind the steering wheel, going like this, rubbing his feet all over the carpet. We get up to the lodge, there's gumbo everywhere in the boat, and the kid's going nuts. And the dad said, you know what, I'll take care of you when we get done. I promise. So the cloud had passed, my boat's full of mud, the weather gets nice, we go back out. After about an hour, the kid falls asleep. He's like, well, I gave him some medication so he wasn't so hyperactive. Well, the kid falls asleep in the boat. I'm like, what's going on here? Well, we come in at the end of the day, and it literally took me 3 hours at the power wash to get this gumbo out of the boat.
And for anybody that doesn't know about that, I know exactly what that clay type deal. It's crazy. Is your stuff's kind of reddish too, isn't it? Like orangish reddish?
No, it's gray. It's gumbo. It's shale. But anyway, the dad says, man, I apologize for my son, and I'll take care of you. And he pulls out his wallet and he flips out a $5 bill and hands it to me. And I'm like, that won't even cover the first 2 minutes of getting this gumbo out of the bottom.
Did you tell him that?
What's that?
Did you tell him that?
No, I didn't. I was very polite and professional, but I tell you what, the amount of gumbo, I try to keep my boat very clean and organized like Ross does, and I tell you what, I'll never forget that kid back there in the steering wheel and mud all over the steering wheel.
I've seen them on the antennas with me, like they're they're riding them like a Bronco.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that just got ripped off.
Oh man. So that's probably not as funny to you guys as it was to me, but this one crazy. That's just a crazy story. But the list goes on and on and on.
Personally, one of my favorites, and the funniest part is I heard about it originally through one of our now mutual friends who came and fished with me, and was about a glitter ramp. There was. I'm sorry, but I think the people need to know.
Glitter on the ramp, yes. So this is no lie. A friend of mine came fishing with you, and he got to witness this whole ordeal go down. We had I just got my new boat. It come in from Ranger, wrapped. Had to take the vinyl, the white wrap they put on when they ship them. Took it out the week before, broke the motor in a little bit. I was back on the weekend from college at the time, and the lodge manager called and said, hey, I got a couple guys that want to go tomorrow. Can you take them out? I said, okay, well, I need to finish up, get a few boat things tidied up, and we'll go. In April, it's, the mornings are 20 degrees up here sometimes. Well, I had a 2-time on the water Ranger boat at the time. Is a Ranger 690 VS. It was a 1997 model. Went out, took it out, got everything ready to go, put the boat on the trailer, backed in the storage building. It wasn't heated. Next morning, I went out, picked up the guys. It was 20-some degrees. I unhooked the bow latch on the front, and I said, okay, can you drop me in the water? Well, I unhooked the bow latch, and the minute the boat started going down the ramp, the bunks were solid ice from the day before. And I never thought of it. A Ranger, you slap them on the bunks when it's dry. You can probably trail over them 100 miles, they won't come off. But the boat come off the ramp, off the bunks. They were solid ice, slid off it like an ice skate, went 40 feet down the ramp, hit the water, and the whole ramp was covered in metal polyflake. You could see it glittering from a half a mile away when the sun was on.
I think the
boat hit the water, and our good mutual friend that fished with you was the next boat in line, and he's sitting up there looking out the window of his truck waiting to put in. I said, well, you ready to go fishing, boys? You might as well go. So I had a 2-day-old Ranger boat that got to ride down the concrete. I can promise you that they still ride pretty soft on concrete like they did in the big waves. I've got to witness it.
Dude, I'm laughing my ass off still, even though I've heard this story 100 times from 10 different people. But I think if it happened to me, I'd probably still be crying a little bit. But I think the best part is when Nick said that, and I think you've said the same thing, is if for months when you'd go down and you'd be going down the river there or whatever, and you'd look up and you'd still see the glitter on the ramp.
Well, at the time, my boat that I had, it was. I still remember. I picked the colors out. It was platinum mist and anniversary red. So it's like if I'd have had a blue stripe in there, it'd have been like the American flag on the boat ramp. I mean, oh my God! There's nothing than sliding a brand new boat down the boat ramp. But hey, we all live and we learn, and I can promise you, I never unhook that latch. Even if it's 100 degrees and dry, I don't unhook it until that boat hits the water now. I mean, I'm starstruck.
And you know what? I mean, the thing is when as I hear this story, I unhook mine a majority of the time as well. And unless I see ice or something, I hate to say it out loud, but I mean, it's the first thing when you do like a boat ramp 101 cold weather fishing, what you don't do. But again, I think guys like us, when you launch a boat 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 times or whatever we have, 4,000, that you kind of just get a little, you get too comfortable. It's not even a lazy thing. You just, you know what you're doing and you can make it happen. And
I'm going to switch the gears. Okay. Let's talk about the bearded man, because I was able to fish. Well, here's what happened. Ross called me up a few years ago, and I'd had a few consecutive years where I ran out and fished Erie, and I took my own rig out there, and we got together for dinner and did a little fishing together. He was busy guiding, but I'd hop in with him in the boat for a day, and then we'd do our own thing and whatnot. But he called me up, and I said, he said he had the NWT that was coming out there, and he had to pre-fish for it, but he had to take some customers and some sponsors and some business partners out. And he said, well...
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because we took, I remember the sponsor guys too. Remember that?
Yeah, we took Fish USA. We took some guys from there. I think he had some boat reps and some, Minn Kota. There's a bunch of different ones. But anyway, you had a bunch of things going on. I said, if you can bear with going through this and then, hop in the boat. I said, I'm used to that. That's the business. I can't wait. It'll be fun. Well, he said, well, the one day I got to take this client of mine, and I'm just going to let you know he's a little bit off the rocker.
Which, if me and you say that, that's saying something.
Bear with it. You can come on, you can help me out, get the line set, get the, just be another set of hands to this guy. And I'm not kidding you, folks. I was like baffled. At the end of the day, I was like shell shocked, like deer in the headlights after being in the water with this guy for days. I mean, we could talk about this for an hour.
You literally said to me, you're like, dude, I can deal with anything. And he's like, this is not, I mean, I can remember just, and that was, I mean, dude, that's like 8, 9, 10 years ago. I mean, I don't know. It was a long time ago.
I'll never forget, we went out and he said, I'm getting off track here, but the story is kind of what makes the story. But anyway, so he goes, I got this spot where we can get on this reef or this shoal or whatever, and we can catch some decent fish. Then we'll go out and hit these other spots, and we'll if the wind's right, we'll end up on this last spot of the day to hit some bigger fish hanging on it. Well, as a guide, a lot of people might not think of this, but sometimes it sounds wrong, but you don't want to go to the hot spot right away. A lot of times you want to kind of break people in and manage your fish, manage your time.
And when they're there because of the wind and
yeah, well, not only that, but making the day last and having a good time. And it's hard to do. You got to adapt to the conditions. But so Ross had this plan, and the plan went perfect. I mean, it was like textbook, but we went out, we caught a bunch of 3 to 4 pounders, and this guy won a bunch of fish to keep. And on Lake Erie, those are the smaller ones at the time when I was in there. But I mean, back where I'm at, we'd be letting those fish go because they were too big, and we want them for the spawners. But we got a bunch of fish in the box to take back, and then we went fishing. We caught some big fish late in the day, and awesome trip. But we shared it with the bearded guy. Well, the amount of stuff that came out of this guy's mouth, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Well, we can share a lot of stories, but I'll never forget when the guy pulled in the boat ramp. What was it, like a Lincoln Continental yet? But it had like 20-inch Dayton gold wheels on it, and like the fifth wheel in the back and the trunk was a Dayton gold wheel, black windows,
and it was named.
Door pops open. This guy's like, was he probably in his 60s?
I don't think he was at the time, even though it looked like it for sure.
He was weathered.
Yeah,
we'll put it at. But anyway, big. I mean, gray beard. I mean, it looked like ZZ Top coming out of the car. You know, he's like, "I'm ready to go, mother effer."
You remember the howl, dude? He'd always do the howl. Ow!
Oh, every fish you get on. Ow!
And do you remember when those boats came around us when we were fishing that one's pile? And I'm like, man, all right, whatever you do, we don't want these boats. I'm not going to net this thing. I'm going to sneak it right up, on the side. And we want everybody to know we're catching them here because nobody's here. They're all over there. We want to keep them there. Bearded man. And he's like, yeah. And we get that giant into the boat. And he's like, ow! Every boat in the lake, dude, was driving at us.
Okay, I'm going to cut to the chase. So anyway, this guy was a handful. Well, I'll never forget. We were out there catching these fish, and Ross we had 4 people in the boat, and we were running. I can't remember if we running 6 or 8 lines.
6.
Yeah. Anyway, Ross would have all these lines set up on the trees, on the staggered rod holders. We'd have the boards out, and every once in a while, Ross would grab the line and pull it so the board would surge. You'd see it, the tattletale flag go like this, and he'd pull it up and then let the line go. And then
hey, that's a secret. I don't like telling everybody, but it's out there now. So
the bearded guy would be like, "Play them strings, boy! Play them strings!" Ow! Like, so he'd be doing all that stuff, and I mean, I'll never forget. I'm gonna get kind of further into the story. So
play them strings, Robertson. Play them strings. If we weren't catching.
Play them strings, boy. Play them strings. So anyway, I'll never forget. We were running in at the end of the day, and I mean, it was a nice day, but there's probably like 3 to 4 foot rollers, and we're gliding along, about 20, 22 mile an hour. The waves are splashing, and he pulls out. He's digging around in his pocket, and Ross is driving the boat. And he's sitting there looking at him, and we're bouncing because he's concerned about the guy's safety. Well, he's not holding on to the seat of the rail. He's digging in his pockets like frantically. And he goes, "We're paying up right now. We're paying." He pulls out this wad of cash, and he
oh my God, I remember.
As Ross is driving through the waves on Lake Erie.
Do you remember? There was a $100 bill in my splash well when we got back to the ramp. True story. All wet, just slopped in.
I know, but here I am. I'm sitting in the back against the live well, and the net is behind me. And Ross is like looking back at me. I grabbed the net. I'm like holding it, waiting for the hundreds to fly. But he's like laying them down on the console, and he's like 1, 2, 3, laying his money out. And Ross like, no. We can wait till we get back. He said, "We're paying up right now." I mean, he was like adamant about it.
We're setting up right here, Robertson.
we're paying up right now. So he's like laying the money out. Hands
God, I forgot this one. That's so funny.
Hands up, and I'm like sitting in the back, like, what is this guy doing? And Ross is looking back at me, and he goes, "You know what? It was a pretty damn good day out there. I'm gonna take care of you." And he points at me. He goes, "I'm gonna take care of you." And then he points back at Ross again. He goes, "I'm going to take care of you again." And he throws a couple hundreds out. He's holding them down in the dash, and the wind's like blowing them on the dash.
Oh God!
Over, and I was back there with, like I said, I was holding the net, waiting for him to fly and catch him. But
the best part of this whole deal is that you were there to remember. Because honestly, I don't know if it speaks to my bad memory or that. All of the insanity that happens out in the boat. I mean, with 4,000 plus days of doing it, but I forgot about that part of it totally. But as soon as I literally have tears in my eyes because I remember it now, and it's just like,
well,
God.
Anyway, I'm gonna. Sorry, I'm talking ahead of you here, but the best part is Ross comes down off a plane and he hands it over, and then he's like, well, let's go, come on, let's go, and then he's all in a big hurry to get back to the ramp, And as we're driving, he built himself a bologna sandwich, 2 slices of white bread, 1 slice of bologna, and ate that on the way back. Well, we get back to the ramp, and there's like a bunch of boats in the harbor there.
Oh, God. This is where it gets bad, folks. This is where it starts getting bad.
A charter boat tied up to the dock, and there's a bunch of clients on it. And bearded guy's up standing in the front of the boat.
And let me interject real fast. With my guys, there's two things that I try to do. I mean, whether it's professionalism or gameplay a little bit, I don't ever like to let other people know how we've done because, A, out of respect for the other charter, you know what I mean? Maybe didn't do as good. They didn't have a good day. We did. But then also somebody sees you. You know, my boats are wrapped. You know, people know who you are. And I try to fish by myself. So you also don't want to say, like, oh, we didn't do really good. Oh, Ross did really good, and he's over there. And we saw his boat when we came by. So it's both of those things. And obviously that didn't work out really well because most of my guys know to chill out.
You know, in the bit, whether you're a tournament fisherman or a guide or whatever, you know, the biggest asset, I know you got to promote the business, but your biggest asset is not being very discreet. I mean, you know, some of the best fishermen and hunters out there, they're not posting up hero pics every day. I mean, they're quiet about it because they want to not only respect the other fishermen, but also keep their good stuff under wraps. But anyway, so we're pulling in the harbor, and this tugboat, he's asking everybody, how'd you do today? Pointing at him. How'd you do? We pull up to the dock, and this charter boat's got about 10 people on it. And we pull up, and Ross like, oh, settle down. We pull up there, he's like, how'd you do? And the guy's like, oh, we got a 4-pounder, and we caught a couple others. And he's like, well, we kicked your ass. And the guy like, and Ross is like, hey, don't take, well, man, you got to, and he flips the live well lid open, goes back there, starts grabbing fish, drug him through the parking lot. And
he actually put them on a stringer and drugged them through the parking lot.
And he had a wheeled cooler too. A wheeled, like a luggage, you know, like how you have a luggage pull behind. He drug them through up to the Lincoln Continental and put them in the trunk. Well,
in the trunk.
I know, but the funny part is he caused an altercation between the other guide. These guys got in an argument about the fish, and then Walt attacked their guide, and he said, well, your guide sucks. And then the guide comes out, and Ross said, hold on here. I didn't say anything. This guy's talking. Let's get the boat in. He had to smooth out the situation. I mean, it was
like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound at that point, but I know that guy later on said to me, he wanted to kill me, and I'm like, dude, that was like trying to put a wildfire out with a squirt gun.
I'll never forget that. But then so he takes off. We go meet him. We clean the fish, and Ross was like, let's go to this fish cleaning station. There's not anybody there right now. Let's just go get him clean quick, get out of there. Well, here he is parading them around again. Get him clean. He goes back to the hotel. I'll never forget this. So Ross and I hop in the truck, and we're like, whew, man, quite the day. So we're like laughing. All of a sudden the phone rings. Ross pulled up. Yeah, how's it going? The bearded guy calls. We got a situation.
That's exactly what he said too. We got a situation, Robertson.
It was, what's wrong? Well, I pulled the judge up to the cottage.
Hey, I want to interrupt for 1 second. I want to interrupt you so we get a full. The car he called the judge, but do you remember why it was called the judge?
I have no idea.
Because he bought that car, this is 100% true, and how he told the story, I definitely can't say exactly, but I'm going to clean it up and say that he bought that car at an estate sale from the judge that put him in the slammer. And I'm like, because I asked him, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of an interesting car for you to have. He's like, I got this from this no good judge. When he died, I went and bought it from an estate sale. Screw that son of a bitch. And I was just like, oh, that's why he called it the judge. Oh. So go ahead, sorry, because this is just one day in the life of the bearded man.
Oh my God. Well, anyway, he goes, we got a situation, mother effer. And I was like, oh, Ross, like, oh, what's going on? He goes, I pulled the judge up in front of the cottage, and apparently she's out of juice. Well, we pulled in, and there's these little cottages, like people could stay in. He's got the car. There's like the driveway and little parking pad. He's got it pulled up all the way to the front door on the grass. Like
you could hardly even get in.
Yeah, like up into the yard, like on the grass at this cottage. All the doors are open. And
the radio was, I guess, gyrating from the neighbors.
What happened is he turned his radio on. I forgot to mention this in the boat. He put on Colt Ford, a song, and put it on replay for 4 hours.
Yes, he did. Song. And he had my speakers in the boat, so all it was doing is just trembling.
Yeah, so we get to there to help him, and he goes, well, I put that new soundtrack of Colt Ford in, and apparently I passed out and took a nap and ran the judge out of juice. So we couldn't get jumper cables up to it because it was in the front lawn. So we had to push the car away from the cottage. And at the same time, I think that the lodge manager...
Well, I was just going to say, do you remember who ultimately helped us?
Yeah, I think the lodge manager come over to say that you can't park in the yard. And then once again, the bearded guy got in an altercation.
So I don't remember if you remember, Tyson, but I think you might be missing this part of it. It was bike week. And a majority of the people that were staying at those cottages were bikers. Do you remember that now? And let's say 3/4 of them were what I call Harley, accountant bikers, where they're an accountant or an executive guy and they got a Harley and nice leather. But there was about 20% that these dudes was like Sons of Anarchy on Bike Week, right? And do you remember the guy that came over and gave us the longer jumper cables so that we could get around? Was the guy, because the lodge manager and then the biker guy came over. And they swapped jumper cables. So the lodge manager had these like $10 Home Depot ones that were like, tiny. And the other guy had like welding cable. And he swapped them and he gave the biker back the $10 pair and he gave the welding cable homemade ones to the lodge guy. And they're like, no, these are swapped. He's like, no, I know which one I gave it to. And he was making this, a shit fit out of nothing. And the biker guy came up. Do you remember this? And the biker guy came up and he was like, we're gonna have a problem. Like he was gonna knock him out. One of the guys watched my TV deal, or it was something, or watched me from something that I had done. And he's like,
you're the fishing guy.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, you're that fishing dude from, and as we're standing in this crowd and I'm trying to, because a crowd had formed around the car at that point. And I'm trying to get him, and this guy was went over to the biker dude who was it was Sons of Anarchy, legit deal. And he's like, yeah, Tom, we're gonna cut this loose, because he was straight gonna get his teeth knocked out on that one. I mean, straight up, dude, there was 20 dudes, excuse me, that wanted to knock him out, man.
I just remember it the whole time that the radio was still cracked, because the Colt Ford, the car was out of juice, but the speakers were still crackling, because he wanted to play the thing. So, and we'd hook up the jumpers, and then it'd come back in and go back out. He's like, oh, here's my song.
Yeah, right in the middle of it, oblivious, just, oh.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there's.
Talk about having to be there, but unbelievable story. I hope you guys are truly getting a laugh out of this, because
you see some interesting stuff guiding. I mean, I don't know. I one of my favorite ones, and again, the best part of this is me and you have talked about this for years, because you've actually called during work events and different things and said, somebody wanted, like you said, to finish the story, and you'll call me out of the blue and I'll answer my phone doing the howl, and immediately people in the background, because you've already got me on speakerphone, are like, is that the voice? And I'm like, yep, that's the voice. Yeah. And we go through it. But do you remember when he passed out on the front deck? Do you remember what he said?
Oh, yeah.
He literally, if you can picture this, passes out flat on his back.
Is this the adrenaline juice?
Yes, sir, it is. You can bring it home if you want. Oh man, he literally passes out, if you can visualize this, on the back deck.
So this is before we go in and before we're getting back.
This is middle of the day.
Yeah, this is before he's doing the money thing going in. This is middle of the day, before the bologna sandwich and the money incident. But he I'm tired. I'm gonna take. So he lays down on the rod locker of the 621. Lays back between the consoles, and Ross and I were like, let's just be really quiet and catch some fish ourselves. So we're just going through and smoking these fish and reel them up, unhooking them in the water, taking them off while this guy's taking a nap, being really quiet. And all of a sudden, he's laying there. We both look back at him, and when somebody's sleeping, you can see their stomach going up and down, breathing. Well, all of a sudden, it stopped, and we look at each other, we're like, is he okay? Is he still sleeping? And all of a sudden,
it was like a movie. It really was.
I mean, the guy went from being on his back, sleeping, catapulting up, doing the howl, ow! And then at that time, a board went back, and he's like, "Give me a shot of adrenaline juice!" And he grabs the rod to reel it in. And then I remember him saying, like, after he woke up, he kept going back to the live well. And every time he'd open up the live well, what would he say?
Same thing. Give me a shot of adrenaline juice, boy!
Yeah, every time. So,
and then the funny part was, I think he was on he was a diabetic if I recall, and so he'd eating candy bars left and right. I remember saying something to him like, "Hey, man, my dad's a diabetic. Like, you sure you should be eating all these candy bars all the time?" And he went back, and I think that's what it was. He just got a sugar high because he'd walk right back and he'd pass out again, and like 15 minutes later he'd get up like nothing happened, and no time passed, and yeah, that was. Dude,
I about that. Good stories. I know everybody's got some good ones, but oh my God, my eyes are teared up because it brings me back to that one day in my life where I get to witness it firsthand.
How about the time where the guy asked him about? He's like, "Who are you fishing with?" Remember that?
Black magic, mother.
Where that name come from, I don't know, but he was referring to me, and back then I used to have all black boats. And
well, that's what it was. Your boats were all solid black, and he pointed at it, and he goes, he flipped the cooler open, the one with the wheels on it, flipped it open. The guy looked, "Oh my God, look at them fish! Who are you fishing with?" He points at the boat. "Black magic, mother." Ross comes walking.
God. Dude, this is a long time ago, and I'm still teared up laughing.
Oh, anyway, but good stuff, Ross. I need to come and see you again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so give me one or two more of your good ones, because I mean, the bearded guy. We'll have to save this for another time, but there's
a lot of good ones, I guess. We covered the hyperactive kid getting in the mud and the two ladies, and I'll never forget, and I'm sorry. I mean, I know this is common talk for guys when they're sitting around the table with buddies to talk about subjects like this. But anyway, I had this guy out that the night before he had a little bit too much fun, and they stayed out late, and they had quite a bit of drinky treats, and he had an upset stomach the next morning. So we're all going out fishing. We typically name these points after certain occasions. Well,
code. It's like your own little code.
Yeah, little code points that nobody else knows about, but us guides. Well, anyway, we're going to this no-name point, wherever it was to catch fish. Well, there's 2 or 3 guide boats on there, and a lot of fish there stacked up. And so we get in there, and this guy's like, "Man, I'm not feeling it. My stomach's churning. I gotta go to the bathroom right now, like fast. It's coming." He had loose stools. Well, he said it was about 90 degrees out that day, and he goes, now this story is kind of consecutive stories. So the guy had really bad diarrhea all day. Well, the first off, I had the ladder in the back of the boat on the Ranger. He said, "I'm just going to crawl in the water, hold on the ladder, and do that, and then I'll get back in." I'm like, okay. So he hops back there, and we're sitting there offshore a little ways. I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to look ahead and let me know when you're back in the boat, okay?" And he's like, yeah. So he crawls back in, and all of a sudden I hear the guy, pull ahead. Well, anyway, it was flat calm, and when he did the number 2, it all floated up around his neck, and he's holding the water. And he's like, pull ahead. I'm like, "I'm not going to fire up the motor because you're hanging out." So I went up and put the trolling motor down and eased ahead, and the current pulled it away.
I don't want to cut your head off and your feet off.
Yeah. So anyway, the current pulled it. It looked like cornflakes on the surface, but it like pulled it away. So anyway, the guy's like, "Oh man, that was close," And so anyway, he gets back in the boat. And about 20 minutes later, he goes, "Oh, man, it's coming on again." And I goes, "Well, can I pull up?" "I don't have time." So he flips the live well up.
Oh. Did you have fish in there too?
We were fishing there. And you had fish
in the live well?
In the live well.
Oh, my God, this is going to...
So anyway, so I flipped the, you got the fill and the auto and recirculate lever on. So I flipped it to open, and I turned the water on. It gets back there, and an explosion goes off. Oh, I feel so much better. So at this time, there's like 6 guide boats around, looking around. You could hear it echo in the live well when it all took place. Well, so I flushed it out of there, and I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. Well, anyway, this is all in the course of an hour. Oh man, I feel like we're going to shore right now. We're going to shore right now. So I drop the guy off on shore. He takes 2 steps, loses balance, gets his drawers dropped, and at this time there's about 15 boats sitting there. He didn't even make it like 5. I mean, you're talking no trees, no nothing. Everybody's sitting there watching this guy. He pulls the pants down. It was like a fire hose, and goes out, and then he falls back into it. And the guy gets on the radio. He goes, "We are now calling this Poopy Point." And it was like everybody starts laughing, and I'm like sitting there.
Oh God.
And so he gets in the water, washes off, gets in, and then from then on, it's all good. The guy was actually an awesome client. I mean, we laughed. He came for probably 5 or 6 years, and we laughed about it every year. Every year he'd come up, the lodge manager would put a roll of toilet paper on his table in his little cabin he was staying at, and be like, "Oh, Poopy Point guy's back." And still to this day, I mean, this has been 20 years ago. Still to this day, everybody refers to that as Poopy Point.
I think there could be a new package with Bigwater Fishing. There could be a Ross and Tyson dual package people may want to pick up. I mean, it's childish, silly humor, but it definitely makes me laugh. And I think a lot of guys that are listening to this, hopefully they do too, because I know when you're in the boat and you're telling these stories, like I don't know how many times we've called each other while I'm fishing, and I let my clients listen to you or vice versa. And it's just funny that guys, when they hear a different perspective of the same story, like the bearded man or...
But yeah, I hope I didn't offend anybody by the lady story or by the last story. But I mean, talk about things that stick out in your mind for years. I mean, it's like, and the minute you talk about them, you can visualize being there that day because the memories are so vivid. It's just something else.
That's for sure. Well, we're definitely going to have you back, because we're going to have to talk about things like your tournament success. We didn't even get into how much you've done and how much success you've had with that stuff, because Tyson has won a lot of stuff and he's been dominant at times out there, especially with your tournament partner who's doing really good now too. And then we'll talk about some other fishing stuff. I mean, maybe we won't even talk about the rat tail. We'll just leave that little.
The rat tail, that's another.
Sprinkle that in.
Back.
Sprinkle that in there.
Sprinkle it.
There's definitely a lot to come. But Tyson, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us, and hopefully everybody laughed as hard as I did. I literally had tears down my face and revisiting some of these things, and I guess that's what we talked about, the mentors and the other guys with the camaraderie. If this isn't camaraderie, I don't know what is. Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's all of us outdoorsmen. We love the details of the fish and the hunt, and we like hearing the stories. But I tell you what, I can't wait to come back and talk about more, specific subjects on certain things. So we didn't really even get into into the game at all on this one, but I hope you guys enjoyed some of the stories along the way too, and hopefully we didn't offend any of you guys. I'm sure if you're watching Ross, I mean, if he doesn't offend us from the get-go, I mean, I think we're probably okay. You're safe with most of my people for sure, but. Yeah, there's definitely different crowds, and we've shot some people that are a little tamer, and then we've got guys like Tyson that we can turn it up a little bit, That's right. Well, sounds good. No, it was awesome. I can't wait to get back and talk about some of that other stuff, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope all you guys have a good day, and everybody watching gets a laugh, and we're able to make the best out of this deal. Well, thanks again for your time, and I think it's definitely a refresher that me and you need to get in the boat sooner than later, and we'll have some more stories hopefully for the next cast. But thanks again. Thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe. Go to bigwaterfishing.com. All that stuff. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. You know the deal. We out. Thank you.